Yin Hua nodded. It is indeed the inner core of the Howling Moon Celestial Wolf. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. General Manager Zhao, on the other hand, did not look too good. He looked at Lin Bai suspiciously and could not help but mutter, "Why didn't we find it even after going through so much difficulty? Yet, this kid could bring it back so easily. Could it be?" He suspected in his heart that Lin Bai had long known the location of the Howling Moon Celestial Wolf. It was very likely that he had told them the wrong location. Otherwise, it was impossible for so many people to return in vain. However, Lin Bai's expression was as innocent as possible. No one could see any clues. "I'm afraid that General Manager Zhao misunderstood me. It could be a coincidence, or maybe God is protecting the City Lord's estate. He knows that the City Lord urgently needs this inner core, so he passed it to me." His words were watertight, and he even indirectly flattered the City Lord. However, General Manager Zhao still did not believe it. If you really knew where the Howling Moon Celestial Wolf was, you should have gone to get its inner core earlier instead of dragging it out until now. Do you know that right now? Seeing that General Manager Zhao had almost blurted out the matter regarding the City Lord, Ran Ziyuan hurriedly shouted to stop him when he saw that the situation was not looking good. He said sternly, "Enough! It's already very good that you were able to find the inner core. We can talk about other things later. Now is not the time to quarrel." General Manager Zhao knew that he had made a blunder and lowered his head. However, he secretly glared at Lin Bai several times. Ren Ziyuan comforted him. "You did a good job finding the inner core this time. The City Lord's estate will remember your meritorious service. You must be tired. Go and rest first." Seeing General Manager Zhao's extremely indignant expression, Lin Bai felt that something must have happened in the City Lord's estate when he left. Although General Manager Zhao didn't finish speaking, Lin Bai guessed that something must have happened to the City Lord again. After Lin Bai left, General Manager Zhao's anger still hadn't subsided. He felt that this kid had hidden his trump card and deliberately didn't take out the inner core at the beginning. He was just waiting for the price to be sold, which caused the matter to drag on until now. The City Lord's deterioration became more and more serious. He couldn't help but say, "Vice City Lord, if this kid could take out the inner core earlier, perhaps things wouldn't be like this. The seal wouldn't have been damaged so badly, and the City Lord wouldn't have fallen into such a situation." Ren Ziyuan shook his head. Now is not the time to pursue this matter. Regardless of whether he did it intentionally or unintentionally, things have already developed to such a state. Our top priority now is to concoct the medicinal pill. What do you think? His gaze landed on Yin Hua. "Elder Yin, there is no time to delay. Let's quickly gather people to refine the medicinal pill." Yin Hua shook his head. "If it was before, when the City Lord had not completely deteriorated, we would naturally be able to refine pills immediately. However, refining pills now is completely insufficient. We still need someone to suppress the seal. Otherwise, that corrosive gas will once again pollute the City Lord's body. At that time, even if we have pills, there's no way." As if he had thought of something, Yin Hua once again became hesitant. "Moreover, the body of the City Lord has already been assimilated. We still need to expel those dirty things. Otherwise, the medicinal pill won't be able to bring out its greatest effect." The joy of finding the inner core, which they had gone through so much trouble to find, was once again washed away. It was as if there was a huge rock pressing down on everyone's heart, almost suffocating them. No matter what it was not easy to do. Ren Ziyuan, Yin Hua, and the others were all worried. Now, we can only hope that he can quickly bring some people over to support us. The success rate of us refining it is not high. We also hope that the Vice City Lord can gather all of the City Lord's experts together. Ren Ziyuan, Supervisor Zhao, and the others who were loyal to the City Lord's estate made the arrangements. Lin Bai also found out about the incident that happened underground from the people around him. If nothing went wrong, it was either the City Lord's doing or those unknown creatures. It always felt like there was an invisible thread connecting the two together. What made Lin Bai feel regretful was that after the previous few incidents, the security was getting tighter and tighter. He had no way to go out and check the situation. Although he did not know about the situation in the outside world, it could be seen from the gloomy and tense atmosphere that there was a huge crisis lurking in the dark. He had been hiding in the dark, waiting for the best opportunity. Soon, He Qingyuan rushed over with the people from the Alchemist Association, including Zhou Zhangqing and the others. They did not have time to exchange pleasantries. Although He Qingyuan was not from the City Lord's estate, he was extremely familiar with what had happened in the City Lord's estate. There's no need to say anything. I already know everything here. The most important thing now is to refine the pills first, and then split into two groups. One group will control the seal, and the other group will purify the thing in the City Lord's body. It was easy to say, but it was extremely difficult to implement. The City Lord himself was a great grandmaster. Moreover, if he were to fall into the chaos, he would be bewitched by that thing. The battle strength in his violent state would rise by a great level. It was not something that ordinary people could deal with. Moreover, without the cultivation level of a grandmaster, just getting close to it was extremely difficult. Even if they were to get close with great difficulty, they would be easily corroded by the gas from the seal. It could be said that it was extremely dangerous. He Qingyuan naturally knew how powerful this was. This time, he actually planned to participate in it personally. I will be in charge of purifying the dirty things in the City Lord's body. The Vice City Lord will be in charge of controlling the seal and preventing the formation from being destroyed. As for the part of refining pills, leave it to the Elder of the Alchemist Association to be in charge. Elder Yin, since you are quite clear about the City Lord's situation, you will be in charge of this matter. Everyone did not object to He Qingyuan's order. Actually, logically speaking, he should be the one to refine the pills. This way, the chances of success would be even higher. Yin Hua could not help but say, "But President, we are not completely confident about the pill. If it were you..." He Qingyuan seemed to know what he was going to say. He shook his head and said, "No, although refining the purification pill is important, because the City Lord has already absorbed a lot of evil energy and filth, we must purify him to let the medicinal effect play out. Otherwise, all our previous efforts will be wasted." Other than him, the Vice City Lord and a few other elders were the only ones who were able to get close to the City Lord. If it were anyone else, they would either be easily eroded by the evil energy, causing even more chaos, or they wouldn't be able to get close at all. Then, they would be unintentionally heavily injured by the City Lord. After thinking about it, they were the only ones. Moreover, He Qingyuan had the sect's purification technique, and he had also obtained a magic treasure from the Alchemist Association. It was the most suitable thing to suppress these evil beings, so it could only be them. The group started to get busy. However, Yin Hua and the others were left alone by He Qingyuan. When we split up, we must be informed of everything. If there are any unusual movements, we must make contact immediately. Even if we can only purify a handful of the foul air, your pill will still be effective. Yin Hua was a little worried. But what if we can't refine it? It was unknown what He Qingyuan had thought of, but his expression was gloomy and unpredictable. Unless it's absolutely necessary, we can only use that method. Yin Hua's eyelids could not help but twitch. He looked at He Qingyuan's gloomy and unclear expression and said in shock, "But that method is really against the heavens. Moreover, how can we do such a thing?" He Qingyuan revealed a bitter smile. "Elder Yin, do you think that I want to? I will not let you do such a thing unless we are in a desperate situation. However, compared to the entire City Lord's estate, a mere dozen lives are nothing. Moreover, this involves the safety of a portion of the people in the capital. You must remember that if the situation is not right, then sacrifice those people underground. It is better than all of us being wiped out." After finishing his last sentence, He Qingyuan had already walked far away. Looking at his departing back, Yin Hua was caught in a dilemma. He had thought of there being such a day, but he had not expected it to be so soon. There was still a faint hope in his heart. Perhaps there was another way. If Lin Bai was here, he would definitely be shocked by their conversation. No wonder the people of the City Lord's estate would make such contradictory actions. Not only did they bring them to such a dangerous and unpredictable place like the underground, they also protected them and restricted their freedom. So this was their plan. Firstly, it was convenient to use them as sacrifices in the future so that they would not be unable to find anyone. After all, the candidates had been prepared and their movements could be restricted at any time. Yin Hua sighed faintly. He could only do his best and leave everything to fate. I hope things won't go to such a bad stage. Although they were all cultivators, the path of cultivation naturally had many ups and downs. Life and death were common occurrences. Regardless of whether it was the people around them or anything else, they had seen too much. However, they were not insane, evil cultivators. How could they just watch those dozens of people sacrifice themselves and remain indifferent? The few elders beside Yin Hua also sighed. At this moment, He Qing Yuan led a few other elders with great cultivations under Ren Ziyuan's lead and headed underground. President He, are you confident this time? Just as they reached the entrance of the passageway, He Qing Yuan could already feel a thick wave of evil aura blowing against his face. He had already felt it when he had just stepped into the city lord's estate. It was as if the entire manor was shrouded in a thick gloom, even though there was a formation blocking them outside. Now that the seal was loosened and cracks had appeared on the formation, even people with strong spiritual senses could sense it. Now that he had just arrived at the entrance of the passageway, the feeling he felt was even stronger. He Qing Yuan shook his head. I'm not 100% sure. Although I've obtained the evil purification bead from the Alchemist Association, even if there's still a purification technique, I'm not sure if it can completely remove this evil qi. Ren Ziyuan's eyes flashed when he heard the words evil purification bead. Is it the bead that can cleanse all the filth in the world? He Qing Yuan nodded. The evil purification bead absorbs the essence of the sun and moon in the world. It has a natural suppression and purification effect on the evil qi. He Qing Yuan did not know if it was his imagination, but his chest was slightly warm. That was where the evil purification bead was placed. He lowered his head and did not notice the change in Ren Ziyuan's expression. He looked up and returned to normal. With the evil purification bead in hand, together with you and the few of us, it should not be a problem to expel at least half of the evil qi in the city lord's body. He Qing Yuan frowned, then revealed a bitter smile. That's hard to say. After all, the city lord's situation is too serious now. It was not that He Qing Yuan did not want to come earlier, but it would take some time for the evil purification bead to be used. Moreover, he had spent a great deal of effort to obtain the purification technique and the corresponding array formation. His goal was to achieve the best effect. Even though he had spent a great deal of effort, it was still a little too late. Fortunately, things had not reached the worst state, or else even these things would not be of any use. At this moment, He Qing Yuan and the rest had also arrived at the depths of the underground. The black fog was surging wildly. Upon seeing the arrival of the strangers, it was like a wolf that had not seen the smell of blood for a long time. It instantly pounced over. Piss off! Ren Ziyuan roared furiously. His entire body was suffused with a faint golden light. It rippled out in the surroundings like a sound wave. The black fog was swallowed within, and in the blink of an eye, it returned once more. It was as if there was no end to it. They came one after another, as if they would never be destroyed. Even if their form were crushed, it would not take long for them to condense again. However, it was impossible not to block their attacks. This thing seemed to have no consciousness, but in fact, it was extremely crafty and strange. Every attack was unexpected, and it targeted the weak spots. Although the lethality was not great, over time, it was like boiling a frog in warm water. It could grind people to death. It looked like it was deliberately draining the spiritual power of Ren Ziyuan and the others. As the black fog surged again, a large amount of golden spiritual power spilled out like stars in the sky. The scene looked extremely spectacular, and the murderous aura it exuded made people feel a chill. The moment the black fog came into contact with it, it burned extremely vigorously, leaving only a little bit of black ash. However, as more and more black ash appeared in the air, it was like small gray insects, densely packed around Ren Ziyuan and the others. The black fog only grew. However, those golden light that looked as if it was powerful dimmed instead. Just as Ren Ziyuan was about to attack again, He Qing Yuan stopped him. This is not the way to go. We can't waste our spirit energy on this. When the time comes, the city lord will still need our help to purify the evil qi. But this thing is hindering our progress, and we can't do anything without dealing with it. He Qing Yuan expressed that he didn't have to worry, I have a way. He threw up something into the air. His hands formed a seal and drew a pattern in the air. The thing suddenly enlarged and enveloped everyone before disappearing. Ren Ziyuan and the others could see that it was probably a funnel-shaped thing. Then, it raised a white light barrier that protected them tightly. The black fog seemed to be blocked by something and could no longer move forward. Ren Ziyuan's face was filled with admiration. I didn't expect President He to have such a good thing. It's just a small trick. These things are not that bad. The thing on the City Lord's side is the most difficult to deal with. This light barrier won't be able to hold on for long. Let's hurry up. Ren Ziyuan and the others were in a hurry. The black fog seemed to know that they were about to leave. It surged like a tidal wave on the ocean. Unfortunately, it was useless. Even though Ren Ziyuan and the others were powerful cultivators, they had suffered a lot on the way. As expected, the riot is even more fierce this time. It seems that the City Lord really can't hold on for long. We have to speed up. It was strange. The closer they got to the City Lord, the quieter the movement became. The black fog also became less and less, and in the end, there was no more. The elders who came with He Qingyuan could not help but look puzzled. We didn't go the wrong way, did we? Unlike what they had imagined, the area around the City Lord had already fallen. On the other hand, the City Lord was unbelievably calm, and there seemed to be nothing out of the ordinary. Ren Ziyuan shook his head. No, there's only one passage here. There won't be any mistakes. He Qingyuan looked at the surrounding environment and revealed an extremely vigilant expression. If it's abnormal, then it's not right. Everyone must be careful. It was very quiet here. Every time Ren Ziyuan and the others came to visit the City Lord, there would be a huge commotion. It was either the City Lord's painful moans or angry roars. It was too quiet today, and people were not used to it. Isn't this place too quiet? The last time I came here, the City Lord could barely suppress the murderous aura. The commotion almost caused the entire underground to collapse. Everyone moved forward carefully. Seeing that they were about to reach their destination, a boundless darkness suddenly surged toward them when they stepped in. It was as if they had triggered a formation or accidentally entered a foreign world. The darkness was so dark that they could not see their own fingers. Not to mention the road ahead, they could not even see what was happening right under their noses. It was as if their eyes were covered by a ghost, and they were in thick ink. What's going on? Someone cried out in surprise. The person next to him thought that it was a monster and almost started fighting. Even so, they were still staggering. Ren Ziyuan and the others followed closely behind the people in front and did not fall behind. He Qingyuan tried to use his spiritual power to illuminate the place. However, it seemed like the place was restricted and could not be illuminated at all. The others soon discovered this problem. It's impossible to use spiritual power to illuminate. We can't even use spiritual fire. One had to know that He Qingyuan and the others were alchemists. High-level alchemists like them would sign a contract with spiritual fire. That was not an ordinary fire. The most powerful one could even burn everything in the world. However, no matter how He Qingyuan urged it, the spiritual fire in his body seemed to be dead. There was no reaction at all. To be more precise, there seemed to be an inexplicable power blocking in the middle, making it impossible for him to contact the spiritual fire in his body. This place was cursed by the darkness and forgotten by the light. No means of lighting could be used. While everyone was panicking, no one noticed the scarlet light in the eyes of the people beside them. Yanhua and the others did not know what kind of obstacle He Qingyuan had encountered. They gathered people to prepare for the pill refinement. He gathered all those with high cultivation and strength. 1,000 days of training is done for a moment. Now, the City Lord has reached the moment of life and death. It's time for everyone to truly put in their effort. The moment he finished speaking, everyone was in an uproar. Ren Ziyuan and the others had always claimed that the City Lord was suffering from a strange illness and needed treatment. Even though they had entered the City Lord's mansion and faced all sorts of measures, all sorts of strict guards, signed a contract, and even ended up here, there were still all sorts of strange things about the changes in the City Lord's estate. Intelligent people already had a guess in their hearts, but when they really heard it, they couldn't help but feel a little shocked. Among them, Lin Bai was the calmest. After all, He had long guessed that Yin Hua and the others would no longer hide it and would directly announce it. It was probably because the city lord's condition had worsened and there was no longer any way to control it, so he had no choice but to announce it. At the same time, many people's thoughts began to move. The city lord was in trouble, which meant that they had a greater chance of making a contribution. May I ask, Elder Yin, what can we do for the city lord? Don't worry, everyone. President, he has already rushed here to treat the city lord together with the vice city lord. What we need to do is to refine pills. The pills we refined previously were just ordinary ones. They can barely suppress the poisonous gas in the city lord's body. This time, we are going to refine 9th-grade detoxification pills. Although Yin Hua and the others chose to announce the truth, they still hid part of their true thoughts in order to avoid causing chaos or being discovered by some people with ulterior motives. For example, the city lord was not poisoned, and there was no poison gas in his body. The pills they refined were indeed 9th grade, but they were not detoxification pills. However, the real pill formula was in their hands. Moreover, very few people knew about this kind of pill, and it was easy to confuse the detoxification pill with it. If they did not say it, who would know? Everyone looked at each other. One had to know that a 9th grade pill was not something that an ordinary person could refine. At their current level, it was impossible for them to refine it. How can we help Elder Yin with this 9th grade pill? You don't know that this is a pill formula passed down from ancient times. The pill refining method is different from the others. It requires 99 types of small medicinal pills. These medicinal pills are special medicinal ingredients. Then, they are mixed with the core medicinal ingredients. Finally, they are refined together into one. This kind of pill refinement method was simply unheard of. There was actually a need to refine 99 types of medicinal pills to serve as medicinal ingredients. There were only a few dozen people present. Fortunately, they were all veterans and were not novice apprentices. The speed at which they refined medicinal pills was not slow. It was likely that they only needed to spend a little more time and effort. However, everyone must not be careless. This process is complicated. If there is even the slightest mistake, the effort will be wasted in the end, resulting in errors in the fusion. Refining medicinal pills was a trivial matter to begin with. Furthermore, they had to refine 99 medicinal pills. In the end, they had to agree while reserving their differences. This kind of requirement could be said to be extremely harsh. For a moment, everyone did not dare to be careless. Moreover, we only have one set of core medicinal ingredients. There is no second chance at all. Therefore, everyone must remember that we only have one chance, and we must succeed. This ancient recipe was too unorthodox. Regardless of whether it was the requirements or the medicinal ingredients, they were all strict. Some of the medicinal ingredients had to be painstakingly gathered. For example, there was not a second inner core of the Howling Moon Celestial Wolf. During the process of refining the medicinal pills, I and a few other elders will always be on guard. Yin Hua's face was solemn as he exhorted everyone. Everyone felt an invisible pressure weighing heavily on their shoulders. If anything went wrong in their segment, they would be condemned to eternal damnation. On the other hand, Lin Bai was deep in thought. He was naturally confident, but he did not expect that the pill refining method would be so strange. However, the only thing worth rejoicing about was that some of the small pills they refined were similar to the pills they usually made to suppress the city lord's illness. It was just that they added a few more steps and medicinal ingredients and slightly changed the pill formula. The difference was not big. It turned out that Yin Hua and the others had long known that such a day would come. In order to prevent everyone from being at a loss and fighting a chaotic war in a panic, they had delved into the formula. That was why they had extracted the medicine from the ancient pill formula to temporarily suppress the city lord's illness. In the future, when the ingredients were complete and the time was ripe, they could refine it according to the pill formula. Otherwise, how could an ordinary pill formula have the effect of suppressing the city lord's illness? Only then did everyone let out a sigh of relief. Although there were still parts of the process that were not the same, there was no need to change the ingredients. As long as they carefully operated and controlled every step, coupled with Yin Hua and the others watching from the side, there should not be too much of a problem. However, in this case, everyone did not dare to let down their guard. After all, there was only one chance. If they were careless and added more or less things, it would result in total loss. Very soon, everyone was assigned tasks, including Lin Bai. They began to refine pills methodically from their positions. Finally, it was time for Yanhua and the others to take action. Therefore, they were only in charge of supervising everyone and the situation of the pills. I wonder if everything is going well with the Vice City Lord and the others. It was strange. The deep part of the cave was quiet. Yanhua sent people to check it out, but the people who sent the news did not find anything unusual. It seemed that everything was peaceful. The person beside him comforted him. If there's no movement, then everything must be going well. The City Lord might already be undergoing purification. However, it was this silence that was a little strange. Yanhua suppressed the uneasy feeling in his heart. Before the storm came, the sea was always calm. Yanhua had a feeling that he was in an endless sea. It seemed calm, but in fact, it was turbulent. He kept feeling that something was wrong. Everything was too smooth, and there was no movement. Before this, the evil chi would riot from time to time, and each time, it would become more and more violent. It would cause a ruckus that took a lot of effort to suppress it. Now that Ren Ziyuan and He Qing Yuan had led people to purify the evil chi, it was impossible for there to be no abnormal movements. This kind of silence was definitely not normal. However, it was time to refine pills, and he really didn't have the time to be distracted. Elder Yin, it's useless for us to think too much now. Perhaps you're overthinking things. Perhaps the Vice City Lord and the President have everything going smoothly and have successfully purified the City Lord. Why don't we hurry up and refine the pills and go meet up with them? If there was a slight mistake in the pill refinement process, the whole game would be lost. Even if Ren Ziyuan and the others succeeded in purifying the evil chi, they would still fail in the end without the evil-dispelling pill. The consequences were even more immeasurable. Therefore, Yanhua could only suppress the unease in his heart. Fortunately, there were no problems with the refinement of so many medicinal ingredients. As the last person's furnace flame extinguished, it meant that the refinement of 99 types of medicinal pills had been completed. Everyone present refined a few different types of medicinal pills. The process was complicated, and they did not dare to make any mistakes. Their hearts were in their throats. By the time the refinement was completed, they were already drenched in sweat. They carefully took them over to Yanhua and the others to check. There's no problem. Hearing this answer, everyone's hearts were finally relieved. They had overcome a small obstacle in front of them, but the bigger problem was still to come. Now, they actually had to mix these 99 medicinal pills with medicinal ingredients to refine a grade 9 pill. Just thinking about it was enough to know how difficult it was. Moreover, they had never heard of this method before. If they hadn't seen the ancient pill formula with their own eyes in, they probably wouldn't have believed it. After all, there were so many pills, and many of them had conflicting medicinal properties. This required an alchemist to have a superb method to resolve it. It was the most testing of an alchemist's ability. In the Alchemist Association, other than He Qing Yuan, Yanhua's skills was the highest. Elder Yin, everything is ready. Yanhua took a deep breath and looked at the dazzling array of medicinal ingredients in front of him. There were also so many pills. Success or failure depended on this one move. Form the formation. As soon as he finished speaking, the few elders beside him received the order and sat in the east, south, west, and north directions respectively. They formed a seal with their hands and sat cross-legged, their bodies emitting a faint light. At the same time, a faint white line seemed to be connected to their bodies, closely connecting them together. Even the magnetic field around them had an inexplicable change. Spiritual energy lingered around and slowly accumulated here. The unintelligible scriptures turned into characters from their mouths, imprinted on the ground and Yanhua's cauldron. I heard that the Alchemist Association has a unique array formation. Only elders or people with high status know about it. It is said that when refining pills, using this array formation can lock the spiritual energy and achieve twice the result with half the effort, increasing the chances of forming the pill in the end. But very few people know about this cultivation technique. Moreover, It requires several people with high cultivation and different spiritual power attributes as the core of the array. Ordinary people can't cater for such conditions. This is also the first time I've seen it. It really lives up to its reputation. The people around whispered to each other. Otherwise, how could it be said that they were refining a ninth-grade pill? Just by looking at the situation, one could tell that it was different from refining ordinary pills. The highest grade pill Elder Yin has refined before is around the 8th grade. This is also the first time he's refining a 9th grade pill. I wonder if his chances are high. Aren't there other elders who have formed a formation to protect him? I think he should be able to do it. Moreover, I heard that Elder Yin already has the strength to refine a 9th grade pill, but he's been stuck at a bottleneck and unable to break through. If He Qingyuan was here, his confidence would be a little higher than Yen Hua's. However, Yen Hua didn't know cleansing cultivation method, nor could he control the defilement pearl. The city lord had to have someone to purify the evil qi, otherwise, even if he refined the medicinal pill, they wouldn't be able to succeed. Both things had to be done, otherwise, it would be impossible to completely purify the evil qi in the city lord's body. In the end, it would all be for naught. Rise! Yen Hua shouted loudly, and a raging flame descended from the sky. It was as if a sun had fallen into the furnace. The flames shot out in all directions, and the originally dim environment became as if it was daytime. Everyone retreated in shock. This fire looked extremely overbearing, but it was actually quite gentle. The temperature in the surroundings gradually rose. Everyone felt as if they were in a huge furnace. Their faces were flushed red, and they all felt a little hot. Those pills seemed to have been summoned by some invisible force. They circled around the furnace and finally fused into it. The fire burned even more vigorously, turning from orange to scarlet red. The fire rose bit by bit, and the bronze-colored furnace was burned red. Immortal herbs and other patterns appeared on the walls of the furnace. Exotic flowers and plants were vivid, as if they were about to come to life. Everyone could tell at a glance that this cauldron was extraordinary, and they couldn't help but sigh. Even Lin Bai couldn't take his eyes off it. Suddenly, he felt that the small, broken cauldron in his hand had become even more broken. As the strange flowers and plants bloomed more luxuriantly, the cauldron fire burned more and more vigorously. Yen Hua began to add other medicinal herbs. He was extremely careful when putting each medicinal herb into it, afraid that there would be any mistakes. No one dared to make a sound and disturb him. They just watched from the side. Compared to Yen Hua's side, Ren Ziyuan and the others were still trapped in the darkness. There was no progress at all. No matter what magic power or magic treasures they used, it was useless. They could not break the space here. We definitely can't go on like this. We still don't know how the city lord is doing. Everyone was anxious to find a way out, but no matter how they walked, they could not walk out of this dark place. The darkness was boundless, as if they could never reach the end. Could it be that we've broken into some array formation? It doesn't seem like it. There aren't any fluctuations from the array formation. If it's a formation, there should be an formation center, but there's nothing here. If they were in a dark environment for a long time, people would face a sense of oppression and suffocation. Even if their cultivation was high, it was no exception. This was because no one knew what kind of creature would appear in the darkness in the next second. The few of them huddled together like newborn chicks. They did not dare to take big steps forward. Fortunately, they did not encounter any monster attacks. Otherwise, it would be more difficult to deal with them in this dark environment. He Qingyuan voiced out his guess. I suspect that this place has been completely corroded by the evil energy, so much so that even the space around us has become distorted. The people around him revealed an incredulous expression. President means that we are now in another dimension. That's more or less what he means. We must break this dimension now, so that we can return to our original dimension. This dimension seems to be a completely sealed state. How do we break it? He Qingyuan had only heard of such strange things in the past, but he had never seen it before. He did not expect that there would really be such a thing in this world. He Qingyuan frowned and thought, I also saw it in an ancient book. His tone paused, as if he had thought of something. His fingers formed a spell and drew in the air. At the same time, he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood from the tip of his tongue. Break! As his voice fell, a huge golden spiritual power burst out from his body. A few drops of blood from the tip of his tongue were wrapped in it. When the majestic golden spiritual power came into contact with the air, it was instantly compressed into a thin golden line. It was strange. Just as it was about to disappear like the last few times, the bright red blood lit up and suddenly became bright. The golden spiritual power that was supposed to be dimming seemed to have found its backbone. The dark color of the blood became much more solid. Beads of sweat appeared on He Qingyuan's forehead. He formed a seal with both of his hands and maintained his previous posture. The golden spiritual power was like a flickering candle in the wind, shaking crazily. Then, under everyone's expectant eyes, it finally stabilized. It's done. The stone hanging in everyone's heart finally fell. The golden thread floating in the air was like a beacon in the dark, guiding them in the direction they should go. As long as we follow this thread, we'll be able to walk out. He Qingyuan's voice sounded a little weak. It was obvious that he had used up a lot of energy just now. President, are you all right? He Qingyuan shook his head. We'll talk about it after we hurry out. This thing won't be able to hold on for long. Everyone immediately stopped stopping and walked along the golden thread for a while. As expected, they saw a small dot of light in front of them. As the world spun, they finally returned to their original location. Before they could see their surroundings clearly, they found that there was a figure lying on the ground in front of them. Ren Ziyuan's pupils constricted and he hurriedly shouted, "City Lord." However, at this moment, his body was emitting a thick evil aura. Just as Ren Ziyuan was about to pounce over, He Qingyuan stopped him. Be careful. If you advance rashly, you'll be easily invaded by the evil aura. No wonder they did not encounter any evil chi along the way. It turned out that the evil chi had been absorbed into the city lord's body and he was already unconscious. No matter how Ren Ziyuan shouted, there was no response. He Qingyuan noticed that half an inch of black lines had appeared on the city lord's forehead. When these black lines grew to the length of a little finger, it meant that the city lord would be beyond help even if an immortal was here. Ren Ziyuan quickly said, "The most urgent matter now is to quickly dispel the evil chi for the city lord. I hope that President and the few elders can help. I am eternally grateful." He Qingyuan's mind flashed. He kept feeling as if something had been forgotten. "President, is there anything else? The city lord cannot wait any longer. We must hurry." Ren Ziyuan's sudden voice interrupted his train of thought. He Qingyuan looked at the unconscious city lord and shook his head. "It's nothing. We can start now." The few of them no longer hesitated. They quickly got into formation. He Qingyuan took the lead while the others assisted. The city lord sat at the center. As he chanted the spell, spiritual power emerged from their bodies and surged into the city lord's body. The spiritual power was like a spring. The evil chi on the city lord's body seemed to have been stimulated by something and began to become restless. The evil chi changed its form and looked like countless skeletons from afar. It seemed that many vengeful souls were trapped inside. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws. Their faces were ferocious and made people shudder. However, they did not have any substantial attacks for the time being. Ren Ziyuan stared at He Qingyuan and the others inside the formation, and a faint dark light flashed in his eyes. He Qingyuan and the others chanted some words. Those words were difficult to understand, but they contained supreme philosophies. As they chanted, lines of scriptures condensed in the sky and transformed into large golden characters that were branded into the city lord's body. The city lord's body could not help but tremble violently. With each word, the black aura on the city lord's body would decrease by a little. His facial features were all wrinkled together, as if he was enduring great pain. He also showed signs of waking up. Seeing that the purification was effective, everyone's worried hearts finally relaxed. He Qingyuan looked at the black gas that was gradually dissipating beside the city lord, and the uneasiness in his heart rose again. Other than the initial obstruction, everything else was progressing too smoothly. Even before, they did not encounter any creatures with strong offensive abilities, and those damn things did not run out. Moreover, if the city lord had been in a riot in the past, those things would have seized the opportunity to wreak havoc and occupy the city lord's mind, causing him to attack. But now, There was no movement at all. Just as he was thinking, he heard a rumbling sound. The City Lord's black aura had originally been on the verge of dissipating, but an extremely huge force appeared out of nowhere. The evil aura instantly solidified and gushed out like a spring, like an enraged ancient giant beast. It glared at them. "Be careful." Qingyuan wanted to warn them, but it was too late. The black aura instantly enveloped an elder. Ah! The black aura was like maggots in his bones, nibbling away at his spirit energy. The elder rolled on the ground in pain and screamed in pain. His face also became distorted. It was actually similar to the City Lord in the center of the formation. As his spirit energy weakened, the array also fell into an unstable state. The spirit light gradually dimmed, and the City Lord's peaceful face became ferocious again. The black chi actually showed signs of reviving. The crowd could not care about the elder who was entangled by the black gas. They could not be distracted for a moment, so they could only increase the intensity of the spirit transmission. However, the array lacked a person, so the effect was not as good as before. In addition, the black chi suddenly rebelled. Fortunately, a deep voice came from the side. "I'm here to help you." It was Yuan. Seeing that the golden light gathered in his palm and fell into the array, it just happened to fill the previous gap, so everyone heaved a sigh of relief. There was no time to lose. In case any changes occurred again, Yuan hurriedly took out the defilement bead. The white bead floated in the air. The black chi seemed to have met some natural enemy and retreated. Some of them could not avoid it in time and came into contact with the pure white light. They instantly disappeared, and even the air felt a lot fresher. The defilement bead could remove all the foul chi in the world. Almost without Yuan's control, the defilement bead seemed to be attracted by something and flew directly to the top of the City Lord's head. The black chi continued to pour in. Under the effect of the formation, the speed of absorbing the black gas was much faster. Everyone smiled with relief. At this rate, it should not be a problem to remove the evil chi in the City Lord's body. As long as they waited for Yen Hua and the others to refine the pills, they would be able to solve the problem from the root. More than half of the black chi had entered the defilement bead. They did not know whether the evil chi was too powerful or not. The appearance of this world's most precious treasure was no longer as bright as before, as if it was covered with a layer of faint dust. Due to the huge consumption of spiritual power, not only did they have to maintain the operation of the array formation, but they also had to purify the City Lord. Qingyuan and the others' faces gradually turned pale. It was obvious they were struggling a little. "I'm afraid that we can't hold on for long. How long do we have to wait?" Qingyuan looked at the black chi in the City Lord's body. "It should be soon. We just need to hold on for a while more." Buzz. The defilement pearl let out a buzz and suddenly started to spin and shake rapidly as if it was stimulated by something. Qingyuan even felt that it was almost out of his control. What's going on? At the same time, the others also felt the rapid loss of spiritual chi in their bodies and were being absorbed by the City Lord. "All of my spiritual chi has been absorbed. Mine too." Just when they wanted to stop and see what was going on, they were horrified to find that they couldn't stop at all. It was as if there was a powerful force controlling them, and they couldn't stop the flow at all. They could only passively be absorbed of spiritual energy. At the same time, the faint black chi didn't get purified. Instead, it crawled over and drilled into their bodies. However, the defilement pearl going out of control happened so suddenly that no one noticed it. Qingyuan saw that the situation was not good, and was about to chant a spell to forcefully stop the formation when a black chi came from behind him. He was caught off guard and suddenly spat out a large mouthful of blood. "It's you." Looking at the person beside him whose scarlet eyes were flickering, Qingyuan's eyes were wide open with anger, filled with disbelief and fear. Yuan was expressionless, and the black chi that continuously surged out of his hand wrapped around him and the defilement bead. He was like a drowning person, unable to break free. "President, Vice City Lord, what's going on? Why are you doing this?" Everyone was so shocked that they could not recover from their shock. They saw Yuan's red pupils. He was like a wild beast, without any human emotions. There was also that black chi around him that was on par with the city lord. Only then did they realize that Ren Ziyuan had also been contaminated by the evil chi. Moreover, his contamination was even more serious. He had already lost his mind. Looking at their expressions, Ren Ziyuan was extremely happy. You are simply a bunch of idiots. Up until now, you still haven't discovered my existence. His words seemed to have a double meaning. In a split second, He Qingyuan seemed to have understood something. No wonder he had always felt that something was wrong earlier. Now that he thought about all the things that Ren Ziyuan had done, a chill rose from the bottom of his heart. This person was too good at disguising himself, to the point that no one had noticed it before and to the point that they kept him by their side to deliver them a fatal blow. He Qingyuan could not even imagine the consequences of not being able to get rid of the city lord's evil chi. Even the vice city lord's mind had long been invaded, and the consequences were incalculable. Most importantly, when had Ren Ziyuan been affected? Vice city lord, wake up. Don't let that thing confuse your mind. He Qingyuan still had a weak hope. Perhaps Ren Ziyuan's consciousness had not dissipated yet. Otherwise, the entire city lord's mansion might be buried with him. I'm not fooled. I'm just following the guidance from my heart. If you are smart, you should know what to do. Looking at Ren Ziyuan's twisted and ferocious face, He Qingyuan could not help but sink into despair. He had thought of many things, but he had never thought that the most crucial problem was actually on Ren Ziyuan. What exactly do you want to do? Even if I die, I won't let you have your way. You think you can stop me with just the few of you? Ren Ziyuan let out a strange laugh and looked down at He Qingyuan and the others as if he was looking at a dead person. Not to mention that He Qingyuan might not even be able to defeat him in his prime. Now, they had long fallen into his trap. The few elders wanted to join hands, but their spiritual essence had already been mostly extracted. Coupled with the entanglement of the black chi, they were simply powerless to resist and could only be reduced to fish meat, waiting to be slaughtered. When my master truly descends into the human world, you will know how supreme he is. Ren Ziyuan's face was full of fanaticism and piety. That expression actually made He Qingyuan shudder. If the master he spoke of really descended, it was likely that people would be plunged into misery. Go and see how they are refining the pills. The moment he finished speaking, a black shadow actually appeared out of thin air. It did not have any facial features and looked exceptionally frightening. However, in the blink of an eye, it actually turned into He Qingyuan's appearance. This thing was clearly meant to destroy them one by one. He Qingyuan wanted to stop them, but he was powerless. Now, his spiritual power had long been exhausted. The defilement pearl also fell to the ground, like a dusty pearl. If I didn't have any use for you, I would send you to hell right now. He Qingyuan gnashed his teeth and said, What do you want? Looking at the familiar face in front of him, some doubts emerged in his heart. If Ren Ziyuan's mind had been infested, how could he be so rational and even set up layers of traps just to wait for them to jump down? And when and how had he been infested? The person in front of him seemed like a different person, but there were no signs of possession. All sorts of questions surfaced in his mind. Ren Ziyuan had a smile on his face, but the words that came out of his mouth were extremely cold-blooded and cruel. Of course it's a sacrifice. Then, no matter how He Qingyuan asked, he didn't say anything. Could it be that the so-called sacrifice was to sacrifice all of them? To the master he mentioned, and then help him break the seal. He Qingyuan felt as if there were a pair of invisible black hands that were holding the entire city lord's estate within. Now that they were in prison, Ren Ziyuan was doing things step by step. Yanhua and the others would probably not be able to escape. The abyss was closing in on them step by step, wanting to swallow everyone within. Who else could save the city lord's estate now? Don't worry about the loneliness on the road to the netherworld. There will be many people accompanying you. Ren Ziyuan admired the despair on their faces with great interest, waiting for the final retraction of the net. President, what should we do now? A few elders lay on the ground with faces like dead ashes. Ren Ziyuan didn't bother with them. Now that these people had lost all their spiritual power and their bodies had been invaded by the black chi, they were no different from fish waiting to die on the shore. They couldn't stir up any waves at all. He only revealed his true appearance after reaching the final step. He must have calculated it beforehand, and everything is under his control. I reckon that the entire City Lord's estate has fallen into their demonic claws. They are only waiting for us fish to walk into their trap. He Qingyuan revealed a desperate smile. This was simply a trap that was bound to lead to death. At this moment, Yanhua and the others had also reached a critical moment in their pill refinement. The spiritual energy in the air was steaming and almost materialized. It was as if one could see all kinds of exotic flowers, birds, insects, fish, and other scenes. It was as if they were not in a dark cave, but some kind of fairyland on Earth. Even the surrounding environment had become extraordinary. Everyone faintly smelled a medicinal fragrance and said with joy, "Is it going to succeed? Just a little bit more." The fire in the cauldron became more and more vigorous, as if it had been given life. It jumped incessantly, and faint spots of light condensed in the air, then converged into a thin Milky Way and fell into the cauldron. Some of the overflowing spiritual energy turned into specks of light, like stars falling down and surrounding the cauldron. The scene was simply beautiful to the extreme. However, everyone had no time to pay attention to it, and all their attention was attracted to the cauldron. Yanhua's forehead was covered in dense beads of sweat. His hands were constantly changing, and he was muttering to himself. The flames also became bigger and smaller. His gaze fell on the cauldron for a moment, not daring to move away as he was afraid that something might go wrong. Because the flames surrounding the cauldron were like loyal guardians, everyone could not see the scene clearly. Other than Yanhua, no one knew how to refine pills. It felt like it was nearing the end, but it did not feel like it. There shouldn't be any problems, right? Ba. You jinx, what nonsense are you spouting here? At this moment, a weak male voice was heard, "Not good." Everyone turned around and saw that Ren Ziyuan was covered in blood. Seeing this scene, Yanhua's pupils constricted. For a moment, he was distracted, causing his spiritual power to fluctuate incessantly. Even the flames were almost weakened. Other than Yanhua, who was still refining pills, and the few elders who were protecting him, everyone else rushed over. "Vice City Lord, what happened to you? What exactly happened?" Only Lin Bai frowned slightly as he examined Ren Ziyuan, who had suddenly barged in. He felt that the aura on his body seemed a little strange, but he could not pinpoint it. "There's a problem on our side." Ren Ziyuan spoke intermittently and looked weak. He suddenly coughed out large mouthfuls of black blood and fell to the ground like an incomparably twisted creature. Everyone hurriedly transferred their spiritual energy to him, but even so, his face was still pale. "We originally wanted to purify the City Lord's evil aura, but we didn't expect that the City Lord would be corroded too much by the foul aura. We didn't notice it at all and accidentally fell for it. Now, President He and the others are using their bodies to suppress it and delay those things. They asked me to come outside and ask for help, probably because he had said too much in one breath." Ren Ziyuan was coughing non-stop. Looking at the remnant black qi that was still lingering around his body, coupled with his tragic appearance, no one doubted him. How could it be like this? Could it be that the City Lord's situation is hopeless? Everyone's expressions were somewhat fearful. They had originally wanted to save the City Lord, but now that they found out about this news, even He Qingyuan's life would be in danger. They didn't know what to do for a moment. Even Yanhua's aura became unstable. If He Qingyuan and the others failed to purify it, even if they refined this pill, they didn't know if it would have any effect. Because Yanhua was affected by the outside world, the flames in the pill furnace became unstable. Sometimes it was strong and sometimes it was weak. It appeared mottled. Yanhua was still considered fine. The spirit energy of the array guardian elders had become dim, causing the surrounding air to form a distorted shape. It almost affected the pill furnace. Yanhua hurriedly said, "Calm down and calm down. Don't be disturbed by the outside world." No matter what, he had to continue refining the pill. If he succeeded, at least there was a chance of survival. Even if He Qingyuan and the others couldn't completely purify it, at least the pill plus the sacrifice could suppress the foul air, giving them a chance to go out and find reinforcements. Then think of a way to solve the matter here. However, if the refinement failed, the sacrifices would have been in vain and everyone here would be completely annihilated. Moreover, it would even affect the outside world, and the consequences would be immeasurable. Hearing Yin Hua's reminder, the other elders immediately focused their attention, not daring to be distracted by the matters of the outside world again. The formation once again stabilized, and the indistinct medicinal fragrance became even stronger. Ren Ziyuan, who was heavily injured, had a glint in his eyes. His eyes became somewhat turbid. He lowered his head slightly, but within a short moment, he returned to normal. How's the situation here? The situation here is still all right. Nothing unexpected has happened for the time being. The others revealed a bitter smile. They didn't know if the pill refinement would still be effective if the purification failed. Just as everyone was at a loss, Yin Hua became the backbone of everyone. He suddenly spoke. No matter what, there might be a way if we refine the pill first. He felt a little guilty when he said the last sentence. Other than Yin Hua himself, there were also a few elders who knew the inside story of the Alchemist Association. Everyone here had to be sacrificed other than those few elders. The others also heard it. They only thought that Yin Hua spent a large amount of blood essence to refine the pill, which was why he was so weak. Ren Ziyuan also comforted everyone. Don't worry, everyone. President, he is trying his best to buy time. He also asked me to bring something that can help Elder Yin. No one doubted him. Only Lin Bai felt that it was inappropriate for Ren Ziyuan to walk toward Yin Hua step by step. No. Before he could finish his words, Ren Ziyuan, who was seriously injured, turned into two streams of black smoke. One of them pounced toward Yin Hua and the other elders, while the other pounced toward the pill refining furnace. Ah! A few miserable screams could be heard. Yin Hua and the other guardian elders held their heads and rolled on the ground. Their eyes were filled with blood and tears, and for a moment, their faces looked extremely terrifying. Foolish humans, you still want to subdue and purify my lord. When my lord descends, it will be the time of your death. Elder Yin, are you all right? Everyone hurriedly ran over, their hearts surging as if a huge wave had been set off. The black fog suddenly became extremely large, and it let out a strange laugh. Its scarlet eyes stared at everyone, flickering with a ruthless and bloodthirsty light. Just looking at it made one shudder in fear. Looking at the group of people on the ground, it was as if he was looking at little chicks. Just as he was about to go back and fulfill his order, a sharp sword chi suddenly blocked his path. The one who attacked was Lin Bai. He raised his eyebrows. You want to leave? It's not that easy. The sword chi split into two and blocked the black fog's path, but he did not take Lin Bai seriously. Petty tricks. The black fog gave a light snort. It was about to forcefully charge over and transform into countless tentacles. However, the moment the fog touched the sword chi, it seemed to be corroded by something. It immediately let out a scream that was even louder than before. A large hole had been corroded in the black aura, and it was continuously spreading towards the body. It had to be completely cut off. This sword chi seemed to be its nemesis. The sword chi wrapped around it in all directions, and the black fog was deeply trapped within. If it was not careful and touched it, green smoke would be emitted from its body. Therefore, it was forced to shrink. Seeing his body shrink in an instant, his eyes immediately revealed a fearful light. He was only been separated. Although he had partial consciousness, his strength was not as strong as Ren Ziyuan's. Otherwise, it would not have been restricted so easily and trapped in this cage made of sword chi. The black fog that had previously ambushed Yin Hua and then appeared incomparably ferocious in front of everyone was now curled up in a cage made of sword chi. You bunch of foolish humans, how dare you imprison me? If my lord knew, he would definitely make you suffer the most terrifying punishment in this world. You would fall into the abyss of hell and suffer eternal suppression. Your souls would never be at peace. Tremble, my lord will make your flesh and blood spill over the entire abyss. Your skulls will become the best containers. Your skins will rot together with the sludge of the abyss. You will not be reincarnated and will suffer every moment of your existence. The black fog's voice was extremely sharp and was accompanied by intermittent screams. Its mouth spoke words that made people shudder in fear. Perhaps if it was its huge and evil body like before, everyone would feel a chill from the soles of their feet just listening to its description of the existence it spoke of. But now, such a small one was shackled by the sword chi. From time to time, as it came into contact with the sword chi, its body would emit black smoke, and then it would shrink a little. It looked very pitiful. Coupled with its sinister words, not only did it not seem horrifying, it was even somewhat comical. No one knew where it had so many words. It kept cursing and swearing. The fear and panic on everyone's faces disappeared a lot and was replaced by speechlessness. Noisy. Lin Bai's cold and deep male voice sounded. The sword aura suddenly emitted a huge light, as if it could crush everything. The black fog screamed and immediately shrank into a corner, shivering like a frightened quail. It could no longer make a sound. Elder Yin, are you all right? The black fog could not cause any waves for the time being. Only then did everyone remember Yin Hua and the others who were injured. They quickly went forward to check the situation. Yin Hua closed his eyes tightly. Black fog surged around his eyes. From time to time, there would be tears of blood left behind. The other guardian elders also had the same expression. Everyone's hearts could not help but feel heavy. It was likely that they would not be able to refine pills like this. What should we do now? What exactly was that strange black gas just now? Why did it disguise itself as the Vice City Lord? And the Lord it spoke of, the Descent? The Abyss? What exactly are these things? Even those who were kept in the dark felt that something was wrong. The various signs that the black gas had revealed just now indicated that everything was not simple. Those words just now were like a dark cloud hanging over everyone's heads. They had clearly only come to the City Lord's estate to treat the City Lord's illness, but now it seemed like they were involved in a difficult problem. Yin Hua's expression was unsightly, as if he was going to die in the next second. Other than being injured by the black fog's sneak attack, he was also worried about He Qingyuan. Since the black fog could disguise itself as Ren Ziyuan and come over, it was likely that there would be a major problem on that side. It was possible that they were all wiped out. Thinking up to this point, Yin Hua could only feel the blood churning in his throat. He spat out large mouthfuls of black blood, causing everyone to feel even more flustered. Yin Hua was their backbone. If Yin Hua was to fall, they wouldn't even know what to do. Are we unable to get out? Even if the black mist was controlled, the words just now were still lingering in everyone's hearts. He Qingyuan, Ren Ziyuan, and the others had also been killed. The black fog should still have a master, and judging from its tone, the master was very powerful. If its master found out, then it would be their turn to be dealt with. I'm still young. I don't want to die yet. I don't want anything. I want to go out, okay? Someone's voice was mixed with a sobbing tone. Although Yin Hua's eyes were injured and he couldn't see the current scene, he could guess, everyone, don't panic. Even though he didn't have much confidence in saying these words. Now, we can only win a slim chance of survival by refining the pill. If they didn't refine it, they would definitely die. Refine it, and they might still have a way to live, although the chances of survival were very slim. Since the City Lord is suffering from a strange disease, then what's with this black chi? Probably because everyone was too flustered. No one connected the City Lord and the black gas together. Only Lin Bai was able to point out this problem. Although Yin Hua had little contact with Lin Bai, he recognized his voice. Just now, it was Lin Bai who had restrained the black gas. He did not speak, but his eyes that were filled with blood and tears fell on Lin Bai's position. For a moment, the atmosphere was extremely quiet. A strange aura spread among the crowd. We don't have much time left. We should refine the pill first. Otherwise, no one will be able to escape. Seeing that Yin Hua did not seem to be lying, everyone's hearts trembled. Undoubtedly, it confirmed what the black chi said before. One after another, they urged, Elder Yin, then hurry up and refine the pill. So many of our lives are in your hands. Yin Hua revealed a bitter smile. My eyes are injured and my spiritual essence is greatly damaged. Do you think I can refine it? Everyone's heart seemed to have fallen to the bottom. It was over. This was the common thought of everyone. Among everyone present, only Yin Hua and the others had a higher level of pill refinement, and could refine a ninth-grade pill. Now that Yin Hua and the others were injured and couldn't refine the pill, what was the difference between this and waiting for death? Then aren't we doomed? Why don't we all go up and try to see if we can refine the pills? There might be a miracle. It's said that 3 stooges are better than Zhuge. With so many of us, we should be able to refine it. Are you stupid? This is a ninth-grade pill. Is it possible to refine it with so many people? Then tell me what you have in mind. It's better than waiting here to die. Yin Hua had a faint premonition that perhaps Lin Bai was the only key to breaking the deadlock. He could tell from the method he used to subdue the black qi without any hesitation just now. Let me do it. The sudden voice made everyone quieten down. They looked towards the direction of the voice. It was Lin Bai, who had just subdued the black qi. Although Lin Bai had displayed great strength just now, no one here knew him. There were even fewer people who had seen Lin Bai refine pills. No one knew how good he was. At this time, the pill was already halfway through the refinement. The rest was related to the life and death of everyone. They didn't dare to let Lin Bai act rashly. They only asked hesitantly, "Can you do it or not?" When everyone said this, they didn't have any other meaning. It was just that when refining pills normally, it was rare to see a change of people. Moreover, this was refining a grade 9 pill. They didn't even know if Lin Bai was confident. Faced with everyone's doubts, Lin Bai did not directly answer. He only said indifferently, "There's not much time left." The flames in the cauldron became dimmer and dimmer. Yin Hua was seriously injured and could no longer provide spiritual power. The flames would naturally extinguish. Right now, it was barely a flame. The pill refinement had reached the most critical moment. If no one came up to take over Yin Hua, they would definitely fail in the end. The final step was also the most critical step. After all, there were 99 types of medicinal ingredients that needed to be fused together. If 1 or 2 of them were not successfully fused, it would cause the medicinal properties to clash and the pill refinement to fail. It could be said that it was extremely harsh. The flames grew weaker and weaker, as if there was an invisible giant rock pressing down on everyone. They had to make a decision as soon as possible. They could not drag it out any longer. However, the black qi was also restless in the cage and was cackling strangely. How could you possibly refine a medicinal pill? So what if you can refine it? In the end, you'll still fail. Rather than wasting your energy, it's better to wait here obediently for death. The crowd couldn't be bothered with it, and their gazes fell on Yin Hua. Elder Yin, what do you think? After all, he was the only one who had the right to make a decision here. Besides Lin Bai, who had volunteered himself, no one else took the initiative to come up. Yin Hua said without hesitation, "You do it." At this point in time, they had no other choice. If they wanted to live, they could only trust Lin Bai. "You can continue to use my cauldron. This cauldron of mine has been fused with half a piece of a divine artifact. It will be more effective for you to refine pills with half the effort." Although it might not be convenient to use someone else's cauldron, Yin Hua's cauldron could also be considered a top-grade magic artifact. It could provide Lin Bai with a lot of help and could offset his shortcoming. Moreover, the pills were already in this cauldron and were about to be refined into shape. If the cauldron was suddenly changed at this moment, it was very likely that the medicinal effects would be lost. In the end, the pill formation would fail because of these losses. In short, it was filled with unstable factors. Who would have thought that Lin Bai would actually shake his head and refuse? A white light flashed in the air, and what appeared in front of everyone was actually a small black broken cauldron. Without waiting for Yin Hua to stop him, Lin Bai's eyes and hands were already quick. He muttered something, and the lid of the cauldron that was originally carved with all sorts of rare and exotic beasts automatically opened. A stream of pure liquid spontaneously flowed into the pitch-black cauldron. The contrast between the two was even more obvious. Yin Hua's cauldron looked ancient and solemn, filled with the aura of history. Even the body of the cauldron was engraved with complicated patterns, and those exotic flowers and plants seemed to be coming to life. On the other hand, Lin Bai's furnace was pitch-black, broken, and small. There was nothing in it. It was like coming from the heavenly immortal palace to a furnace in the countryside in an instant. Many people stared at the scene in front of them with their mouths agape. Yin Hua suddenly felt a sense of regret. He kept feeling that it was a wrong decision to let Lin Bai refine pills. But it was useless to say anything now. Lin Bai had already started, and could not be stopped unless he stopped himself. If outsiders forcefully interfered, it would only cause the pills to become unstable and eventually fail. Yin Hua did not dare to gamble, and the others also did not dare to gamble. What on earth is he thinking? It can't be that he wants to drag all of us down to hell together, right? Previously, everyone was still somewhat grateful for Lin Bai's action, but now that they saw that he didn't use a good furnace and actually used a small broken furnace, everyone was somewhat confused. Who doesn't know that Elder Yan's furnace has the effect of neutralizing medicinal plants and helping them fuse together very well? He actually chose that small broken furnace. Everyone was talking in low voices, and there was some dissatisfaction in their words. Cough, cough. In the end, it was Yin Hua who coughed a few times to suppress the voices of discussion. Since it has already started, there's no turning back. Do you still want to disturb him? It was only then that they remembered that their lives were all related to this pill. They looked at Lin Bai nervously, afraid that he would make a mistake in some aspect. However, Lin Bai's movements were fluid and smooth, and his expression was incomparably calm. It seemed that it was not a difficult problem for him. The medicinal fragrance in the air became more and more intense. A glint flashed across Yin Hua's eyes, and even his pale face became much better. Could it be that Lin Bai could really succeed in refining it? The black gas in the cage was still swearing. Originally, everyone would still argue with it, but now they had no mood to do so. A ball of golden light slowly condensed, and even the small, dilapidated furnace became somewhat extraordinary. One could vaguely see all kinds of rare and exotic beasts, and their figures were even more solid and heavy than before, as if they were real. Everyone vaguely heard the cries of dragons and phoenixes. In short, the feeling was mysterious and magical. It could not be described with words. All kinds of strange phenomena appeared in front of their eyes, and then all of them sank into the furnace. Then, the golden light suddenly exploded. Boom! With a loud sound, everyone retreated together. They were pushed far away by the fluctuation of spiritual power. However, Yin Hua's face was full of excitement, and he almost couldn't speak. This is a success. The light was so dazzling that no one could see it clearly. The dust scattered in all directions, as if they were in a fairyland of the Cloud Palace. All kinds of rare birds and strange beasts seemed to come alive as they floated around the crowd. The 100-year-old silver leaf flowers bloomed silently. One could still feel the softness of the leaves when touching them. Even the surrounding was filled with the fragrance of green grass. Such a phenomenon would only appear when the pill was successfully refined. Just when everyone thought that Lin Bai's pill had been successfully refined and the stone in the bottom of their hearts was finally lifted, no one noticed that the imprisoned black chi was actually letting out a strange cackle. It's impossible for you guys to succeed. Lin Bai also did not expect things to be so smooth. He looked at the pill floating in the cauldron and was just about to pick it up when his expression suddenly changed slightly. A faint black gas overflowed from the pill, and a crack appeared on the originally golden and round surface. Then, like a spider web, it rapidly spread out in all directions. The previously blossoming flower was like a landscape painting. The color gradually faded from it, and the medicinal fragrance floating in the air was also enveloped by a rotten aura. Everyone looked at the golden pill in front of them and immediately revealed a terrified expression. What the hell is going on? The golden appearance became mottled, and the black aura spread. It actually had the same effect as the monster that had disguised as Renziyuan before. Even though it was now imprisoned, the evil words it spoke were like a heavy hammer that fiercely smashed into everyone's hearts. My lord has long been prepared. Everything is within his calculations. You bunch of ants, why don't you obediently wait for death? Perhaps my lord will leave your corpses intact. This medicinal herb had been tampered with by someone. Not only had it caused the final pill refinement to fail, but it had also been able to absorb the cultivation of the alchemist. What a vicious plan. Lin Bai frowned. He could sense that the spiritual energy within his body had been attracted by something and was crazily surging into this contaminated pill. Yanhua once again spat out a large mouthful of blood. It was unknown whether he had been affected or angered. You bunch of ghosts are really despicable and shameless. It was a pity that no matter how much he scolded them, he could not change the situation. The refinement had failed, and they could no longer fight back. Everyone knew that, and they immediately looked desperate. They could no longer take care of themselves. They did not have the time to pay attention to the situation on Lin Bai's side. No one noticed that red, green, and black lights were flashing. Ding! The host has passed on 30 days' worth of cultivation to Little Green. The 100-fold return has been successfully triggered. The host has received 3,000 days' worth of cultivation. Ding! The host has passed on 50 days' worth of cultivation to Little Red. The 100-fold return has been successfully triggered. The host has received 5,000 days' worth of cultivation. The black chi that was originally absorbing Lin Bai's spiritual energy suddenly stopped. The person in front of it was like a bottomless pit that could not be completely absorbed no matter how hard it tried. Moreover, the spiritual energy was still pouring into it endlessly. It was completely unable to absorb and dissolve the spiritual power in its body. The black chi seemed to have been stimulated by something. It surged crazily there, and even the monster in the cage was affected. Noticing the changes here, the wild laughter suddenly stopped, as if it had discovered something unbelievable. How is this possible? Lin Bai controlled the spiritual power, bit by bit removing the black chi and impurities that were attached to the pill. The originally mottled golden core once again regained its previous luster. Those black spots slowly fell down and actually revealed a silver appearance. Rings of golden pill patterns surrounded it. There were more than 9 layers, and the rich medicinal fragrance once again filled this space. It was even more intense than before. Even Yanhua and the others, who were seriously injured, felt refreshed after smelling it, and their expressions became much better. It seemed to have a calming power. At the beginning, they were still panicking, but gradually, they regained their composure. There seemed to be a pair of invisible hands in the air, calming down all the chaos. What's going on? Looking at the pill in Lin Bai's hand, everyone had incredulous expressions. Didn't he already fail to refine it? Then where did this silver-colored pill come from? Moreover, the pill they had seen before was clearly golden in color. Now that the color had suddenly changed, did it still have the same effect as before? Everyone looked at each other, their expressions filled with doubt. Lin Bai said concisely, "I have a secret skill. As long as the medicinal pill is still around, I can still restore it." Actually, Ren Ziyuan had already tampered with the medicinal ingredients earlier. The moment the medicinal pill was completed, it would be corroded by the black chi. Moreover, the spiritual power of the alchemist would also become nourishment. They would be caught off guard and would not have the strength to retaliate at all. After all, as the Vice City Lord, he had sufficient authority and no one would doubt him. It was because of this confidence that he did not come himself. It was not surprising that his vicious plan would succeed. However, he never thought that there would be a strange being like Lin Bai. With the help of the system, he had an endless stream of spiritual energy. Not only was the contaminated pill unable to be absorbed, but it was also purified. Its quality rose to another level. Lin Bai did not want to talk to outsiders about all this, so he just made up an excuse. The others did not come into contact with him and did not know about the twists and turns in his words. Therefore, they did not doubt the authenticity of his words. That monster did not expect that Lin Bai would actually break this killer move and successfully refine it. He screamed crazily, "This is impossible. How could you succeed? So what if you succeed? You still can't stop the descent of my lord." Lin Bai slowly walked over. For some reason, when he looked at the person in front of him, the monster actually felt a sense of fear from the bottom of his heart. "Who is the master that you speak of? How will he descend? Tell me clearly, and I can consider sparing you. Just give up on this thought. I will not betray my master." Although the monster's facial features could not be seen clearly and it was only a mass of black fog, anyone could hear the decisiveness in its tone. Seeing that he could not get anything out of Lin Bai said indifferently, "Then you can go to hell." The moment his voice fell, A pure white sword passed through the center of the mass of black fog, and it instantly disappeared in the air as if nothing existed. However, everyone knew that the catastrophe had just begun. Then what should we do now? Now that the pill has been refined, we should quickly think of a way to meet up with the Vice City Lord and the others. However, when they thought of the monster that had transformed into Ren Ziyuan just now, everyone's hearts sank to the bottom. Was Ren Ziyuan and the others already attacked by the monster, or were they currently waiting for their support? No one knew what the situation was like. They did not know that the situation was far worse than they had imagined. Ren Ziyuan had completely fallen. Even He Qingyuan and the other elders were seriously injured because of his betrayal. But if we encounter such a monster again, we won't be able to tell if it's real or fake. Their disguises are too good. Isn't it very dangerous? Even if it's very dangerous, we still have to go. Maybe the Vice City Lord and the others are waiting for our support. If we delay any longer, they'll be in even more danger. Everyone knew the degree of danger this time. It was likely that they would not be able to return. Yin Hua coughed a few times. Although his expression was ugly, it was much better than before. If any of you are willing to go, you will be a noble of the City Lord's estate. I'll go, Lin Bai said lightly. With his words, a few of the more powerful ones behind him also said, I'm willing to do my part for the City Lord. Me too. Yin Hua nodded. He did not ask all of them to follow Lin Bai. He only chose a few of the stronger ones. I hope things are not at the worst. You must find the Vice City Lord and the others first. Then, work together with them. Only then will there be no mistakes. Yin Hua warned them a few more times, afraid that Lin Bai and the others were too young and impetuous and didn't have a good view of the big picture. Don't worry, Elder Yin. We know all of this. After bidding farewell to everyone, under the worried gazes of Yin Hua and the others, Lin Bai and the others walked into the depths of the cave. Someone asked in puzzlement, why didn't Elder Yin allow us to follow them? This way, the more people there are, the greater the strength. Now that we're separated, won't it be easier for us to be defeated one by one? I know what I'm doing. Yin Hua coughed a few times, his eyes revealing a sorrowful expression. He did not tell the others the truth. There was still a huge hidden spell formation here, which could be considered the last way out. It was not considered a way out. It was just to buy some time for everyone. If the final operation failed, Yin Hua would activate this spell formation and sacrifice everyone here. There was nothing they could do for the overall situation. Otherwise, once the foul energy leaked out, not only would the City Lord's estate suffer, even the people in the city would not be able to escape. Everyone's expression was a little perturbed. They prayed in their hearts that everything would go smoothly for Lin Bai and the others, but they did not know what kind of situation they would face in the future. Meanwhile, Lin Bai and the others were also heading deeper into the cave. They did not know if it was because He Qingyuan and the others had passed by earlier, or because Ren Ziyuan was certain that they would not fail, so there was nothing to stop them. I keep feeling that it's too quiet. Why didn't those monsters see us? Isn't quiet good? At least it proves that we didn't attract the attention of these damn things. I wonder how the Vice City Lord and the others are doing. The few of them were talking in low voices. Lin Bai did not speak. He walked at the front, giving people an inexplicable sense of security. At this moment, on the other side, He Qingyuan and the others were surrounded by black qi. It had already traveled all over their meridians, and their spiritual energy had been completely exhausted. It was obvious that they were at the end of their lives. Even so, a faint circle of spiritual qi surrounded them, and they were still putting up a last-ditch resistance. Next, I'll let you all play your last little role and become nutrients. They can't even protect themselves, so they won't be able to save you. Ren Ziyuan had been pretending the whole time. He had launched a sneak attack at the last moment, and then used the same method. Yin Hua and the others probably couldn't dodge it either, so they couldn't help but close their eyes in despair. At this moment, Ren Ziyuan seemed to have sensed something and suddenly frowned. It actually failed. What's going on? He closed his eyes, wanting to feel the memory of the black qi, but unfortunately, it had been completely wiped out by Lin Bai's sword qi. There were no memory fragments at all. Ren Ziyuan opened his eyes and sensed that someone was approaching. The corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. Then I'll play with you guys well. When the time comes, I'll send you guys on your way together. After saying that, he glanced at He Qingyuan and the others from the corner of his eye. A thick, black gas came out of his hand and wrapped around them, as if a giant beast had swallowed them. He Qingyuan and the others were vigilant, but they couldn't resist asking, "What do you want to do to us?" Their eyes were shining with a scarlet light. The white spiritual energy gradually retreated, as if there were two forces fighting. Unfortunately, their own forces were still being defeated and eventually replaced by the black gas. Then, it gradually returned to normal. You know what to do later, right? When He Qingyuan and the others looked at him again, there was no longer any hatred in their eyes. Instead, it was replaced by respect and worship. They were like marionettes controlled by someone. They said respectfully, "Yes, Vice City Lord." There seemed to be sounds of fighting ahead. Just as Lin Bai and the others approached, there was some movement in front of them. Everyone could not help but raise their vigilance. "Everyone, be careful." Lin Bai warned everyone and then walked forward. They saw He Qingyuan and the others in front of them, fighting with a few monsters. "It's President He and the others." His companions wanted to take a step forward, but they were stopped by Lin Bai. "Have you forgotten what happened to the Vice City Lord?" They paused and thought of the monster that could imitate people. If He Qingyuan and the others were the same, they would be in trouble again. Therefore, they didn't attack immediately. They just hid and quietly watched the battle. He Qingyuan and the others seemed to have been seriously injured. Not only were their faces pale, but even their movements were weak. They were gradually at a disadvantage. This can't go on. What if President He and the others are really being chased by these monsters? We should make a move first. It's not too late to save them and verify their identities. Seeing that the black gas was about to hit He Qingyuan's back, the monsters in front of He Qingyuan were so aggressive that he didn't have time to be distracted. If Lin Bai didn't make a move now, He Qingyuan's life would be in danger. If the monsters were putting on an act, it wouldn't be to this extent. A sharp sword chi appeared and instantly destroyed the black gas. He Qingyuan suddenly looked over. "Who is it?" When he saw Lin Bai and the others walking out from the corner, he could not help but heave a sigh of relief. "So it's you guys." With the addition of Lin Bai and the others, the pressure on He Qingyuan and the others was greatly reduced. Moreover, with the sharp sword chi in Lin Bai's hand, wherever the black chi went, it would scatter in all directions. It did not take long for them to be completely destroyed. He Qingyuan sized them up and asked hesitantly, "Why are you guys here? Where are Elder Yin and the others?" Lin Bai didn't say anything. He only looked at them with a kind of scrutinizing gaze, and there was also a hint of vigilance. At the same time, the other people's expressions were the same, which made He Qingyuan and the others even more puzzled. What kind of look is that? The disciples of the Alchemist Association formed a seal with their hands and chanted. He Qingyuan's body was surrounded by a faint green light, and the jade pendant hanging on his body also flickered with a luster. The auspicious cloud pattern on it seemed to have come alive. The jade pendant of our Alchemist Association has been dripping with blood. Only the owner can use it. No one else can wear it. This is also an important status symbol. It needs to be used in many places in the association. We have our own way of identifying it. It's impossible that it's fake. He Qingyuan couldn't care less about the disciples' offense. Why am I getting more and more confused listening to this? What's going on with you guys? President, you have no idea. There was actually a monster disguised as the Vice City Lord. Not only did it sneak up on Elder Yin, but it almost caused our pill refinement to fail. Fortunately, fellow Taoist Lin helped to turn the tide. He Qingyuan knew that Lin Bai was the person he had expelled from the Alchemist Association back then. However, there was a reason for what happened later. In addition, Yin Hua had explained the situation from the beginning. Considering that the situation in the City Lord's estate was indeed getting more and more serious, and they urgently needed manpower, that was why Lin Bai was left behind. He did not expect that he would actually be the one who turned the situation around in the end. A dark light flashed across his eyes. Then, he said with incomparable relief, "Good. If the matter in the City Lord's estate can be settled, you will be credited with great merit. At that time, we will make it up to you properly." "Oh right, President He, what exactly is the situation on your side?" Why is there a monster disguised as the Vice City Lord? Have you succeeded in purifying the City Lord? Teaching you inside. It's a long story. He seemed to have thought of something, and his expression suddenly became anxious. Let's go find the Vice City Lord quickly. He's heavily injured now. The group did not stay any longer. Under his leadership, they walked forward, and during this time, they also talked about what they had encountered. The City Lord's situation is far more serious than we imagined. When we were halfway through purifying, those monsters also ran out of the seal to cause trouble, destroying our purifying array. As a result, the Vice City Lord was heavily injured. Our situation is better, so we came out to look for you guys for help. Fortunately, you guys refined the pills. It turned out that they had also been attacked by the monsters. Now that Ren Ziyuan was seriously injured and could not move and was recuperating on the spot, He Qingyuan led a few people in an attempt to find Yanhua to join them. It was likely that the monster had grasped this opportunity, so it disguised itself as Ren Ziyuan and took the lead to find Yanhua. It wanted to destroy their pill refinement, so that the pill refinement could not be completed and the purification would also fail. In fact, these monsters had indeed succeeded. They had ambushed Yanhua and destroyed the pill refinement, but the premise was that Lin Bai did not exist. He Qingyuan let out a long sigh and said, "I didn't expect it to be so dangerous. Those monsters are indeed cunning. We almost fell into their trap." Both sides sighed after listening to the story, especially He Qingyuan. He understood in his heart. No wonder you guys had such an attitude just now. President, please forgive us for offending you. We are also worried that those monsters will once again pretend to be you to cheat us of our trust. He Qingyuan waved his hand to show his understanding. It's only right for you guys to be cautious during special times. His gaze fell on Lin Bai. It's just that I didn't expect that you actually have such a great ability to refine a grade 9 pill. The younger generation is indeed formidable. Let me take a look at the pill. After all, such a big incident happened midway. I'm afraid that the pill might also be affected. Lin Bai glanced at him. He Qingyuan's face was filled with worry, and there wasn't anything wrong with it. President He, don't worry. Elder Yin has checked, and there aren't any problems. We'd better hurry and find the Vice City Lord first, lest we delay the urgent matter. The others felt that there were no problems. After all, Yanhua had said it himself. They all agreed, that's right. Let's hurry and find the Vice City Lord. He Qingyuan retracted his hand and looked at Lin Bai without batting an eyelid. Then, he said, that's true. Time waits for no one. Let's hurry and leave. When Lin Bai and the others rushed over, Ren Ziyuan was meditating and recuperating. His face was pale and his aura was weak. He had indeed suffered quite a few injuries. Elder Yin and the others were ambushed by monsters. Fortunately, the pill was successfully refined in the end. He Qingyuan spoke concisely and clearly, explaining the whole sequence of events. Ren Ziyuan slowly opened his eyes and said weakly, "That's great. There's no time to lose. Let's hurry up and purify the City Lord. With the pill, I believe we can definitely succeed this time." At this point, Lin Bai still had a few doubts, such as whether the monsters were related to the City Lord. Moreover, from the current situation, there was also the information that Yanhua and the others had revealed. He had a feeling that the City Lord did not seem to be sick. Instead, he seemed to have been invaded by some evil energy and needed to be suppressed again. What exactly happened? The dignified City Lord had actually been controlled by an evil being. The commotion that came from underground and the attack that he had received were very likely the work of the City Lord. However, these were just Lin Bai's guesses. It could be seen that Yanhua and the others had kept this a secret. They would not tell him the truth until the very last moment. Vice City Lord, may I ask, how is the City Lord's condition? I don't think he is as simple as being sick. Ren Ziyuan's expression stiffened for a moment before returning to normal. It was as if he did not expect Lin Bai to suddenly ask this question. He sighed faintly. At this point in time, we did not think of hiding it from you. When everything is over, we will tell you. However, there are too many secrets involved in this matter. It will be difficult to explain in a short period of time. The most important thing is to save the City Lord. Having said that, Lin Bai could not continue asking. He Qingyuan quickly tried to mediate the situation. Yes, the city lord cannot be delayed any longer. As Ren Ziyuan was seriously injured and He Qingyuan and the others were not in good condition, Lin Bai and the others all went to treat their injuries. However, Lin Bai did not do anything. Ren Ziyuan and He Qingyuan could not say anything. They could not force Lin Bai. They just looked at each other in the air and then moved away. Under the lead of Ren Ziyuan and the others, Lin Bai and the others quickly arrived at the position of the castellan. He Qingyuan reminded them, "We were attacked by monsters here just now. Everyone, be careful." Not far away, there was a figure lying on the ground, covered in black gas. Seeing that there were no monsters around to ambush them, Ren Ziyuan hurried forward. City Lord, City Lord." The person laying on the ground did not respond. "Let's not waste any time. The City Lord is now in a coma. While the monsters are not rioting, let's finish the last part of his purification." Ren Ziyuan was not fully recovered yet, so it was not suitable for him to take action. Fortunately, Lin Bai and the others had joined him and temporarily filled his vacancy. He only needed to guide the others on how to do it. Ren Ziyuan's gaze fell on Lin Bai. "Then you?" As if he knew what he was going to say, Lin Bai said, "I'll guard you from the side in case the monsters suddenly attack." Ren Ziyuan was at a loss for words and didn't know what to say. He said embarrassedly, Then that's it." A subtle dark light flashed in his eyes, and some fear grew in his heart. Ren Ziyuan was confident in his own strength. Logically speaking, it should be foolproof. Who would have thought that Lin Bai, who suddenly appeared, would disrupt all the plans and actually refine the pill? However, he did not take it to heart. Although his plans were disrupted, it did not change the outcome. These people were ultimately like Mantis trying to stop a chariot. No one could stop his grand undertaking. White spiritual energy surrounded the City Lord's body, washing the black fog bit by bit. Previously, Lin Bai could not see the City Lord's facial features clearly. Now that the black fog had dispersed, Lin Bai could finally see them clearly. Unexpectedly, the City Lord was even younger than he had imagined. His face didn't look much older than him, but his face was too pale, as if he hadn't seen the sun for years. This time, the process was unexpectedly smooth, with no monsters disturbing them. The vigilant hearts of the people gradually relaxed. Seeing that the purification was almost complete, Ren Ziyuan said, "Hurry up and take out the pills for the City Lord to take." Although Lin Bai was a little suspicious and felt that something was wrong, Ren Ziyuan, He Qingyuan, and the others in front of him did not seem like monsters in disguise. Could it be that he was really overthinking? A silver-colored pill appeared in the air. It had a total of 9 pill patterns. It could be seen that it was indeed a top-grade pill. The air was filled with a rich medicinal fragrance. It was as if even the injuries on his body could be alleviated. The pale faces of He Qingyuan and the others recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was truly amazing how miraculous the medicinal effects were. At the same time, it seemed to have awakened He Qingyuan's deep memories. He frowned, and scarlet light flashed in his eyes. This state was noticed by Lin Bai and the others. "President He, what happened to you?" "Maybe it's the relapse of an old illness." The scarlet-red color in He Qingyuan's eyes became more and more obvious. However, it was immediately replaced by a smear of black. His expression was extremely complicated, as if there were two forces fighting. Ren Ziyuan couldn't help but frown when he saw this. He supported He Qingyuan and said to the others, "President, he will be fine after resting for a while." However, He Qingyuan seemed to have finally broken free and suddenly shouted, "No!" Unfortunately, it was too late. Lin Bai had already fed him the medicine. At that moment, Ren Ziyuan suddenly made a move. Other than Lin Bai, the others were all pushed back by the black qi and flew more than 10 meters away. They fell to the ground and spat out a large mouthful of blood. Vice City Lord. Before they could react, Ren Ziyuan suddenly made a move. Lin Bai had dodged Ren Ziyuan's sudden attack. It seemed that he was on guard. Seeing that he didn't fall for his attack, Ren Ziyuan couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "It seems that you've been suspecting me for a long time." It turned out that He Qingyuan had been controlled by Ren Ziyuan all along. However, when Lin Bai took out the medicinal pill, he suddenly regained consciousness and broke free from his shackles. It was a pity that it was too late. They had actually succeeded in refining the pill. They had never thought that they would end up falling into Ren Ziyuan's trap in the end. They were both angry and anxious. A gush of scarlet sweetness filled their throats as they once again broke through Ren Ziyuan's imprisonment. All of you hurry up and leave. You're not a match for this monster at all. It has long corroded the Vice City Lord's mind and occupied his physical body. It did not matter even if Ren Ziyuan saw that his true face had been exposed. It was just that there was some surprise and amazement on his face. I didn't expect this pill to have such an effect. It can even break free from my control spell. If I really let you guys follow the original plan, there's a high chance that you'll succeed. The heavily injured people on the ground immediately revealed an extremely terrified expression. However, they couldn't leave even if they wanted to. Ren Ziyuan waved out a few streaks of black air. A majestic pressure came like a mountain and a sea. It was also like some ancient giant beast had suddenly woken up. In an instant, resentful ghosts cried and wailed. The baleful and evil aura within him were simply terrifying. Lin Bai could see that Ren Ziyuan seemed to have some similarities with the monster he had encountered earlier underground, but his power was even stronger. He suddenly leaped to the side as if his body was like the wind between heaven and earth. He didn't leave any traces. However, the wall next to him suffered. The black gas landed on it and instantly corroded a large area. Moreover, the black traces were like moldy spots that could not be wiped away. They were rapidly spreading in all directions. Even the temperature in the air had dropped. It became extremely cold and gloomy. One could imagine that if this attack landed on Lin Bai's body, he would be either dead or crippled. Ren Ziyuan revealed a cold smile. Your skills are pretty good. At this moment, his appearance was still the same as before. However, upon closer inspection, his facial features seemed to have bulged. It was as if he had been inflated by blisters. There seemed to be something densely packed surging within. Even his pupils had turned completely white. There was no life in his gaze or expression. It was as if everything was dead, causing one's heart to tremble. More and more black gas gushed out from his body endlessly. It was as if he was the incarnation of the abyss at this moment. When he descended into the mortal world, all disasters and death would follow. Lin Bai did not dare to lower his guard. Ruo Shui's sword was tightly held in his hand. As if it was under an invisible pressure, the blade of the sword trembled slightly and let out a faintly discernible sound. One had to know that the Ruo Shui sword had never been like this before. Now that a great enemy was in front of them, it could not be underestimated. Lin Bai did not summon Little Red, Little Black, and the others. After all, Ren Ziyuan definitely did not display his full strength now. He still had a trump card in his hand, so he also planned to leave a backup move. The air was filled with a murderous aura, indicating that a war was about to break out. Their gazes met in midair. Ren Ziyuan's expression was full of contempt and disdain. You're a mantis trying to stop a chariot, overestimating your own strength. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Ren Ziyuan was even more furious, and his expression became extremely vicious. You will pay a painful price for your arrogance and boldness. The two seemed to have made an agreement to attack together. White spiritual energy and the black fog intersected like a huge beast tearing at each other. The fight was so intense that it could not be separated. Lin Bai's Ruo Shui sword drew out a stream of sword chi. It seemed to be a light and gentle, but it was mixed with the power of lightning. However, the black mist instantly expanded and swallowed it in the blink of an eye. I thought you were very capable. This bit of sword chi is not enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. I can swallow as much as I want. As soon as he finished his words, countless sword chi followed. It was as if the Ruo Shui sword had turned into thousands of swords, interweaving into a dense net. The black mist could not avoid it, and was exposed to the sword chi. As Lin Bai waved his sword, the black fog's figure became smaller. The originally huge giant's figure suddenly shrunk, and Ren Ziyuan finally looked at Lin Bai. Little ant, you still have some ability. The sword in your hand is a pretty good magic weapon. However, he still held contempt in his heart. He thought that the only reason why Lin Bai had such great strength was because of the sword in his hand. The black gas exploded again, like a volcano, forming a huge skull in the air. Wherever the sword light went, it could not affect it at all. Instead, the white spiritual power became dim. The dark eye sockets stared at the crowd, giving them an indescribable pressure, especially when the skull opened and closed its mouth. Cold air came out like a bone-piercing blade. None of you will be able to escape this place today. Lin Bai was able to dodge it, but the others were not so lucky. They laid on the ground and moaned in pain. The black fog nibbled away at the spiritual energy in their bodies bit by bit, like a glutton that didn't know when to stop. The protective sword chi on Lin Bai's body had dissipated a lot after being swallowed by the black fog. However, the Ruoshui sword was not an ordinary magic tool, so the loss of the sword chi was nothing. If I didn't have any use for you, group, I would have sent you all to hell long ago, and your souls would never be at peace. Lin Bai's eyes changed slightly, as if he was in a daze. His entire body was wrapped by the black fog, and he could no longer move again. After dealing with Lin Bai, the black mist around Ren Ziyuan's body gradually dissipated, revealing his strange appearance. His facial features had changed, and he looked more like some kind of creature hidden under the human skin. The city lord laying on the ground was indeed the real city lord, and he was not a monster in disguise. As for why the pills did not have any effect, it was because the evil qi in his body had not been completely purified. The interior of his body had long been invaded by the black qi. It was as if he was wrapped in a thick layer of filthy soil. No matter how magical the 9th-grade pill was, the medicinal effects could not be exerted. However, what Ren Ziyuan did not know was that long before Lin Bai fed the pill, a few wisps of spiritual power wrapped in Ruoshui sword chi had also entered the city lord's meridians. I've waited for this day for too long. He kept mumbling, and his words were awkward and difficult to understand. In any case, it wasn't the common language of cultivators, but rather some ancient language. This made Lin Bai even more suspicious of Ren Ziyuan's identity. Perhaps the Ren Ziyuan in front of him had long been invaded by an unknown existence. The outer shell was still the same, but no one knew what the soul inside was. Following Ren Ziyuan's incantation, rumbling sounds came from the surroundings. Countless rocks fell and the ground suddenly collapsed, giving people the illusion that the place was about to collapse. As the world spun, dust flew everywhere. The huge spell formation finally saw the light of day again, bringing with it an ancient aura. Lin Bai looked at the scene in front of him in shock. It was clearly still underground, but the scene that greeted his eyes made the building look even larger and older. He was sleeping in the long river of history until finally, a mysterious face was revealed. The surrounding stone pillars were located in a few corners in the north, south, east, and west respectively. The middle became somewhat empty, with only a huge disc-shaped object and a gear in the middle. There were some incomprehensible patterns and paintings carved around it. The handwriting was blurry, and the patterns could not be seen clearly. After looking at it for a long time, he actually felt dizzy. It was as if these things were about to jump off the wall and come to life. Even so, he could still feel the distorted black shadows around him. They stared at the crowd like tigers watching their prey. Lin Bai felt a little uncomfortable after observing for a while, so he withdrew his gaze. All in all, there was a strange pressure everywhere. This kind of totem was probably infused with divine sense. It had some kind of hinting effect. It could even unleash spiritual power attacks. It was probably because it was ancient. Otherwise, people with average cultivation levels might have their consciousness stolen in an instant. Even Lin Bai didn't dare to be careless. He felt that the distorted black shadows were getting closer and closer. He could see them sometimes. From their clothing, they looked like people from ancient times. However, their facial features were a mass of black gas, which made them look even more terrifying. As they got closer, the uncomfortable feeling became more obvious. Lin Bai decisively withdrew his gaze and did not continue looking. The shadows also disappeared. However, a cold aura clearly surrounded them. It felt like they were being stared at. However, they were temporarily unable to cause any substantial damage. The eeriest thing was the array formation that occupied the entire building. Everywhere he looked was a massive array formation, and it continued to extend deep into the city. He even suspected that this array formation covered the entire City Lord's estate, and not just that. Even though so many years had passed, the edges of the array formation were somewhat damaged. The talisman seals were damaged, and it was no longer as imposing as before. The aura that occasionally leaked out still caused people to tremble from the depths of their souls. It was as if people were going to be suppressed here forever and could never escape. Lin Bai could be considered to have some understanding of formations. Although he did not know what kind of formation this was, he could tell that it was probably used to suppress things. Just that what exactly was being suppressed here? It was at the point of using such a powerful and complicated formation. Moreover, from the surrounding environment, this formation seemed to be very old, probably dating back to ancient times. Lin Bai didn't dare to think about it. He even suspected that it was because the previous City Lord had discovered the location of this ruin that the City Lord's estate was built on it. But why did he do this? All kinds of doubts flashed through Lin Bai's mind. At this moment, Ren Ziyuan placed the City Lord on the circular plate in the center and muttered to himself, "Gotcha." The gears that had not rotated for a long time actually started to rotate here, as if something had come to life. It was like the rhythm of a heartbeat. Lin Bai seemed to hear a sigh in a trance. It was as if some ancient existence had been awakened. The rusted gears made creaking sounds, and an endless stream of black gas surged into the City Lord's body from the underground. Only then did Lin Bai clearly see that this place was probably an altar. It was a place used to hold some kind of sacrificial ceremony. He guessed that the City Lord was the sacrificial offering. Ren Ziyuan was doing this to let the City Lord's body be occupied by something else. "My lord, you've been asleep for so many years. It's time for you to wake up now." Ren Ziyuan's words confirmed his conjecture. His eyes were filled with a strange light, as if he was a fanatic believer. So he had no time to pay attention to the situation on Lin Bai's side. In his opinion, these ants couldn't stop his plan at all. After all, who would care about a bug that could be easily squashed to death? It's over. Everything is over. When that devil truly revives, this place will become a purgatory. Qing Yuan's face was pale, and his eyes were full of despair. Looking at his crazed expression, it seemed that he had been shocked and went crazy. If I knew this would be the result, I should have advised the City Lord against it back then. Otherwise, this matter would not have ended like this. Everything was caused by greed. We are all sinners. We are all guilty. Qing Yuan rambled on incoherently, which made Lin Bai even more confused. He could not help but ask, "What exactly is going on?" "There is nothing to hide from you now." Qing Yuan sighed as if he was immersed in some kind of memory. He said faintly, "This used to be an ancient battlefield. It is filled with all kinds of baleful and evil qi. As it lingered around, it condensed into the most evil creature in the world. This creature even gained consciousness." Only then did Lin Bai know that this was an ancient battlefield. There had been a great battle between the demons and human cultivators. That battle had lasted for a long time, and countless people had been killed or injured. The world had changed color, and in the end, both sides suffered heavy losses. However, the murderous and resentful qi had interweaved, causing this place to become a land of death. Living creatures could not step in. As long as they touched it, they would be possessed by this qi and become machines that only knew how to kill. As time passed, this place became a forbidden area. No one knew the situation here until the aura actually gained sentience. By the time it was discovered, it had already matured, so it could only be sealed and suppressed forever. After hearing his story, only then did he know the origin of the black aura. No wonder it was so cold and gave people a feeling of fear. It turned out to be the most evil thing in the world. Lin Bai asked in puzzlement, "Since this thing is so dangerous, can't we completely destroy it?" Qing Yuan revealed a bitter smile. "That's easy to say. It's easier said than done. This thing was born and raised by the world. It's an object formed from the resentment of the two races. It was invisible and could not be destroyed by humans. You must know that there were at least tens of thousands of people from the two races who died here back then. At that time, it could be said that blood flowed like a river and bones piled up into a mountain. According to the ancient records, the great battle back then was extremely bitter. Even many powerful figures of the two races had fallen. They all possessed the ability to move mountains and overturn seas. These ghosts were unwilling to leave just like that. They stayed here and refused to disappear. The human cultivators were still fine. However, the demons were originally bloodthirsty and evil. Moreover, after they died, they became incomparably evil. The curse that they had released when they were alive had trapped them here forever, causing their souls to be unable to rest in peace. At the same time, they completely polluted this land. Even people with a firm mind would be affected here. Under the such various factors, such an evil creature was born. Then who sealed it here? It was the original city lord. In order to prevent it from seeing the sun again and harming all living things, they sent people to guard the seal. Even so, the resentful aura would still attack and corrode the seal. It needed to be strengthened at regular intervals to ensure that it would stay here forever and not come out to cause trouble. As the ancestors of the city lord had participated in the seal, they had also been chosen to guard it for generations. It could also be considered as the secret of every city lord. Unfortunately, as time passed, those mighty figures had fallen one after another. The seal had also become unstable. Lin Bai was still somewhat puzzled. After all, he had never seen any related words in any of the books. Why hasn't this matter been mentioned? I don't think anyone else seems to know about this secret either. That's because too many years have passed, and many things have already disappeared in the long river of history. In addition, there are not only the souls of the demons in this land, but also the heroic spirits of the human race. We don't want to disturb their rest, so very few people know about it. Only the past city lords know how to strengthen the seal in order to avoid being used by someone with ulterior motives. They used this to destroy the seal and release the demons. Originally, this seal could still hold on for some time. Qingyuan seemed to have thought of something, and a worried expression appeared on his face. This city lord unintentionally stepped into the territory of the seal and brought back a magical artifact from the ancient battlefield. That magical artifact was extremely powerful. I thought it was the heroic spirit of the human race, but who would have thought that it was actually from the demon race? Moreover, after the resentful qi gained sentience, it could actually disguise itself. Not only did it wipe away the resentful qi on the magical artifact, but it also attached its clone to it. Due to the passage of time, the seal was somewhat loosened. Although it was still unable to break through the seal, it was able to allow its clone to slip out. At first, it was unable to achieve anything. However, the city lord fell into its trap and mistakenly thought that it was the artifact spirit of a magical artifact. Hence, the city lord found treasures and spiritual medicines for it to recuperate. As the city lord was corroded by the demonic aura, he initially thought that he was suffering from a strange illness. Subsequently, he was gradually bewitched by it and fell into a trap step by step. By the time he finally realized that something was wrong, it was already too late. Back then, Qingyuan also knew about this matter. Initially, he thought that the city lord could control that creature. However, he did not expect that the demon was too cunning, and he still fell into its trap. The city lord was not suffering from a strange illness. Instead, his mind was corroded by the demonic qi. Unfortunately, he discovered it too late. The things that happened after that were out of their control, so they could only announce that the city lord was suffering from a strange illness. In reality, the pills that were refined were all to suppress the demonic qi in his heart, so that it would no longer come out to cause trouble. However, it was only to treat the symptoms, not the root cause. As the demonic qi eroded more and more of the city lord's body, it would come out to cause riots every once in a while, controlling the city lord's mind to cause trouble. In order to not let others discover the city lord's strange behavior, the city lord had entered the underground. Firstly, it was to hide from everyone's eyes and ears. After all, it was not good for this news to spread out. Secondly, it was also to borrow the power of the seal to suppress the demonic qi in his heart. If the city lord fell completely and the seal could not be strengthened, it would be able to see the light of day again. It was not until now that Lin Bai had figured out the ins and outs of the matter. The reason for the disaster was that the city lord was greedy for the great power of the magical artifact. He thought he had obtained a supreme treasure and became the master of the magical artifact. However, He had never thought that he would fall into the trap of the evil aura. Who would have thought that the evil aura of the heaven and earth would actually become intelligent? Moreover, it had attached its own clone to magic artifact, corroding the city lord's spiritual sense and luring him step by step into the abyss. By the time he finally discovered it, it was already too late. He Qingyuan sighed. His expression was regretful. At first, we all thought that it was just a remnant soul that refused to leave the battlefield and tried to communicate with him. In the end, this massive monster was too good at disguising itself and actually fooled us. The city lord searched for all kinds of medicinal pills and treasures for it, so that it could cultivate, recuperate, and become stronger. Yet in the end, we were digging our own grave. Even though it has been a long time, and the formation has been loosened, but with the reinforcement of each generation, there shouldn't be too much of a problem. It just so happened that this monster found an opportunity to slip out of the formation. A clone stirred up such a huge storm. Lin Bai had a mocking expression on his face. If the city lord had decisively chosen to destroy that wisp of spiritual sense, nothing would have happened up until now. How could there be a cheap lunch in this world? He had naively thought that it was some ancient spiritual sense that could guide his cultivation, allowing him to pass through all kinds of ancient mystic realms unimpeded. From then on, there would be no more obstacles in his immortal cultivation, and he would be able to have a smooth journey. What a joke. How could there be any good things in this world? The city lord wasn't the chosen one, and he wasn't someone who was favored by the heavens. Unfortunately, when faced with temptation, everyone felt that they were the most special one. Lin Bai's gaze fell on He Qingyuan. His expression was filled with pain and guilt. He knew so clearly about this matter, and he reckoned that he had participated in it back then. President He, may I ask that in this, you? As if he knew what he was going to ask, He Qingyuan revealed a bitter smile. The founder of the Alchemist Association once participated in the matter of the seal. We have been helping each generation of city lords strengthen it. Therefore, I also know about this matter. In fact, He Qingyuan felt that it was a little inappropriate back then. After all, he had brought it back from the ancient battlefield. Their ancestors had left instructions to never come into contact with the ancient battlefield. Even if those mighty figures had fallen, their magic treasures must still be sealed there. They could not disturb their peace, and they definitely could not touch those things. After all, that period of history was too dark and heavy. No one wanted to recall it. Now, the demon race had disappeared without a trace. They rarely showed themselves in the world. Therefore, this period of history was gradually forgotten by everyone. However, their cruelty and bloodthirst were carved into their bones. This resentful aura was a ghost that was even more evil than them. It could be said that it gathered the most evil power in the world. It could be imagined that if it was allowed to see the light of day again, the entire capital would probably be turned upside down by it. If you take chances and don't listen to the words of the predecessors, you will always be at a disadvantage. Otherwise, what would be the purpose of those rules that they left behind? Facing Lin Bai's criticism, if it was in the past, how could he, the president of the Alchemist Association, allow a junior to step on his nose? Even this kind of lecturing tone was simply offending his superiors. But now, He Qingyuan's face was full of defeat. He had lost more than half of his spirit energy and was like an old man who was about to die. It's too late to say anything now. The formation is flawed, allowing this devil to take advantage of the loophole. Now, the only city lord who can consolidate the formation has lost his mind because of the evil qi entering his body. Even if the pills are refined, what can we do? When the clone of this monster completely destroys the seal and releases its true form, I'm afraid that the entire capital will be plunged into misery. We are sinners. Lin Bai's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at Ren Ziyuan, who was doing something in front of him. Needless to say, Ren Ziyuan had also suffered. His consciousness had been completely invaded by the monster. This kind of situation should be completely hopeless. Must the city lord wake up before he can consolidate the seal? He Qingyuan did not expect him to ask this question. In He Qingyuan's opinion, this was a situation where death was inevitable. After all, the monsters had already summoned the altar. As long as it was successful, the seal would be destroyed. Yes, only the city lord knows the method. Moreover, the monsters took a lot of effort to invade his spiritual sense. If we expel it, I believe it will also be injured. Then, if the city lord takes action to solve the problem of the seal, there should still be a chance to salvage the situation. It was easy to say, but one could imagine the difficulty of the operation. Qing Yuan and the others could be said to have been completely wiped out. They were either contaminated by assimilation or severely injured. There were not many who could fight. Just the first step to